Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're diving into a truly fascinating paradigm shift. You know, when I first read this text, which draws its insights directly from a profoundly impactful work known as the 19th Lemma, specifically the treatise on frugality, I was just struck by how it completely redefines the way we experience daily pleasure. I mean, we spend so much of our time trying to maximize the good things in our lives, but the source text we're analyzing today flips our conventional understanding totally upside down. So get ready, because we're going to explore moderation not as some kind of strict restriction, but as a literal gateway to actual abundance.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a question. Have you ever noticed that a plain slice of bread, eaten while you're hungry, brings way more pleasure than the absolute richest dessert eaten when you're already full? Think about that for a second. It is such a relatable sensory paradox. We've all been there, right? You're absolutely starving, and the simplest, driest piece of bread tastes like an absolute Michelin star delicacy. But later, after a massive meal, even a highly decadent, sugary treat just kind of feels heavy and unappealing. This single question perfectly frames exactly what our source material wants us to examine about how our own internal desire impacts our enjoyment.
When you really look at this stark contrast, the plain bread when hungry versus the rich dessert when full, the core argument of our source text becomes incredibly clear. True satisfaction isn't actually derived from the richness or the material value of the item we're consuming. The difference in pleasure comes entirely from our state of being when we consume it. The magic, so to speak, isn't in the food at all. It's entirely in the balance of our own physical and spiritual state at the exact moment of consumption.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept of Iktisat is how far it goes beyond our standard definitions. Our text defines Iktisat as a profound spiritual practice of moderation. And listen to this second part because it's key. It builds balance, nourishing the body, the spirit, and pleasure itself far beyond just spending less. It is absolutely crucial to understand that, according to the spiritual guide of this age, this isn't just some budgeting tool. Rooted in the overarching framework of Surah Ibrahim, verse 14:7, this is a holistic spiritual discipline. It's an active, mindful balance that fundamentally alters how we interact with all the blessings in our lives.
And because this is such an active, holistic practice, the text actually outlines 6 distinct, life-enhancing gifts that come directly from this mindful balance. Let's take a quick look at exactly what those 6 gifts are. The progression of these gifts is just truly beautiful. First up, Iktisat is a form of spiritual gratitude. Second, it acts as a profound respect toward the divine mercy that's hidden within a blessing. Third, it is a sure cause of abundance. Fourth, it's a source of health, acting as a natural moderation for the physical body. Fifth, and honestly this is so vital for our personal character, it is a means of dignity. The text explains that this dignity actively keeps a person from a kind of spiritual begging, it keeps you grounded, self-reliant. And finally, building up to this incredible 6th point, Iktisat lets you truly feel the pleasure inside a blessing, allowing you to find immense pleasure even in things that seem completely pleasureless. It literally restores the joy to the mundane. But of course, as with any profound practice of balance, there is an opposing, destructive force that threatens it. If Iktisat brings us those 6 incredible gifts, what happens when we go in the exact opposite direction? Well, the source material refers to this opposing force as israf.
Israf essentially translates to wastefulness, but it's not just a passive mistake. The text points out that israf actively works against all 6 of the gifts of moderation we just went over. Instead of building up spiritual gratitude, health, and dignity, israf destroys that delicate balance. By tossing aside moderation, israf systematically replaces those 6 gifts with an outcome that the text explicitly states always ends in serious loss.
Comparing these 2 paths side by side really drives the point home, doesn't it? On the one hand, Iktisat acts to nourish our balance, leading ultimately to abundance, health, and dignity. On the other hand, israf actively works against that balance, leading straight to serious loss. One path systematically builds up our holistic well-being, while the other relentlessly tears it down.
Okay, let's switch gears and see how this builds in a completely different field of study. It is absolutely wild that we can jump from ancient spiritual wisdom directly into modern nutritional science and sensory psychology and find that they are speaking the exact same language.
Nutrition science actually calls this sensory-specific satiety. It's this neurological phenomenon where endlessly repeating the exact same taste dulls the brain's response to it, while moderate consumption keeps the pleasure fresh. This scientific concept perfectly validates the 6th gift of Iktisat that we discussed earlier. I mean, it proves biologically what the text stated spiritually. moderation physically preserves our capacity to truly feel the pleasure inside a blessing. When we consume as needed, in moderation, the pleasure stays vibrant and fresh.
To really anchor this, there's a fascinating 1986 academic paper in Nutrition Reviews by B.J. Rolls. The research explicitly states that unlimited repetition of the same taste reduces its reward value, while moderate consumption preserves it. This is secular, factual, biological evidence that perfectly backs up a profound spiritual truth. Your brain is literally hardwired to stop enjoying things if you just consume them endlessly without discipline. The mechanism of our biology practically demands the very moderation that the spiritual text prescribes.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that true pleasure fundamentally requires the discipline of moderation. Iktisat isn't about depriving yourself of joy. Actually, scratch that. It is the exact mechanism by which you save your joy from the dullness of overconsumption. By pushing away israf and embracing balance, we actually restore the flavor to our lives. We nourish our bodies, we protect our dignity, and we unlock a sustained, genuine pleasure that wastefulness simply destroys.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. Which valuable gift in your daily life do you think has lost its flavor simply because you consume it nonstop? Whether it's the food we eat, the media we watch, or the comforts we just sort of take for granted, how might practicing a little bit of Iktisat bring the joy back into your daily routine? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible source material today. Keep seeking that balance, and I'll see you next time.